Let's talk now to foreign affairs analyst Calvin Dark. He joins me from Washington. Calvin, great to see you as always. This is a pretty interesting deal. But what is even more interesting, Calvin, is how upset France is that it is not part of it. And that's because they're losing out, in the end, losing a huge financial commitment as Australia turns to the US and the UK for those submarines. The French Defense Minister has likened the announcement to the same attitude put up by former President Donald Trump. Should France have been sidelined from this deal, and what difference would it have made had they been included?
Well, I have to say that when I was first learning of this, my first question was, why did we do this to France? I didn't quite see why they weren't involved. And so that was the kind of question that I went into it at first. But I realized that I think the reason why the Biden administration did it was President Macron and, France, as they assume the presidency of the EU, has kind of made very clear that while they're going to have their own strategy towards China, it's not going to be like the U.S.'s strategy, that they're not going to follow the U.S. They're going to try to strike a middle ground of, strategic partnership that may put them at odds sometimes with the United States. And I think that's part of the reason behind why the Biden administration pursued this deal with the UK and Australia. Also, too, the UK, with Boris Johnson particularly, is trying to establish their kind of foreign policy goals and presence, now being a part of the EU. So this, of course, feeds into that. I do have to say, when it comes to, this being kind of Trump-esque, they're kind of right in the sense that if there's a strategy, it hadn't been communicated to our partners, and this decision wasn't communicated to them in a timely manner, which I can definitely understand why the French foreign minister was so perturbed.
Yeah, and it does seem like, the rest of Europe is trying to understand America's foreign policy post-Trump. This pact, however, all boils down to weakening China's influence in the Indo-Pacific region. Again, we're talking about something former President Donald Trump pursued while he was in office. But China says this is extremely irresponsible. The focus on China. You think this deal could prove effective in its goal to weaken China's influence? Or are leaders just simply missing the point about China?
Now, when it comes to U.S. relations with the EU and other partners on China, that I don't think this deal is going to help. But now, when it comes to how the U.S. deals with China and how they kind of sketch out where their partners are in the region, I do think this helps. It shows that the United States is taking this seriously. I think one of the things that President Biden, what he's running into, is former President Trump did a lot of things in a way that a lot of folks didn't agree with inside and outside of this country, but we are where we are, and some people kind of want to keep it like that. And by that, I mean this kind of heightened state of tension with China to let them know that we're serious about economic and other strategic issues between us.
Indeed. Once again, we hear from the EU. Yesterday, it was the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen calling for a military force for EU to be able to ward off, enemies. But once again, we're hearing, that call, the strong call for military defense. So if anything, the Afghanistan crisis has proven that other countries, especially the EU, depended heavily or still depend heavily on America, and now they're trying to establish their independence. Josep Borrell described, their own strategy as cooperation, not confrontation, which probably explains, what you were saying, Calvin. But do you think that a joint military force for Europe might escalate tensions, in the Indo-Pacific or its relations with China, considering the rhetoric that has been going on over the years, especially under former President Donald Trump?
Yes, I think that's going to be difficult because let me tell you, as we're all aware, during President Trump's term, he raised the issue of NATO and our cooperation with EU partners. And, he always talked about it in the context of, the United States is being taken advantage of financially, we should be paid back, all of that kind of stuff. Well, regardless of what people think about that, he made it part of the discussion. People weren't talking about that at that level before Donald Trump. And so now people realize that our alliances there's this perception among a lot of Americans that, we're being taken advantage of, or that we could be taken advantage of, or that we're fighting someone else's fight because they don't want to spend the money or the troops or what have you. So I do think that's going to be a lot more careful. And even though Biden's position and approach is different than Trump's, he's got to deal with the reality of the post-Trump world and how Americans think about military cooperation with our allies, even in Europe.
Calvin, as always, it's a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for joining us on the program. And of course, stay safe.
Thank you. Okay.